The last rally of 2021 with Jerry Gidel commenting and analyzing with his estimates for the USDA's stock report right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. If you are new here, please make sure to subscribe. Hi Jerry, how are you? So the year is ending and we are finishing with ready for both corn and soybeans.
Yes, we had a very pretty strong early part of the week here with the really the expectations that the South American weather, which has not been very kind to Paraná and Rio Grande so far, and also looks like pretty ominous stuff for Argentina starting late this week and into next week. But we did have kind of one of these classic unexpected showers that came in here and dumped in one spot there in north central Paraná, which really it's an area that was a little bit dinged up, but not like the western part of the state that had 3 inches of rain. And that kind of took us in yesterday, but today we've been generally on the upside. We did have some late profit taking, as we always do ahead of ahead of a holiday like this, because particularly this time of year, if you've got profits that you're going to be taxed on, you just will have the profits in your pocket. So that's usually what happens. But in general, very impressive performance here during the month of December.
And for the upcoming report, you are seeing record soybean crush and soybean exports.
Yes. Well, it turns up that the crush this time it really has come back very strong here in October and November. September was still dealing with old crop beans, and they were expensive, and then they had the new crops they were working with at this point. And looks like to me that we're going to be right near last year's overall total, only down. I'm kind of projecting 6 million at 553 million on soybean crush from there. Now exports without the September issues as it has been with the problem with Hurricane Ida, and that really kind of postponing a lot of shipments during the month of September. We are down maybe a couple 100 million from there. Overall, this could be a lot tougher looking stocks report. We are going to be higher this year on the stocks, but I wouldn't consider them, considering the crop size has moved up in size too, as we have a lot better yield going on from there. That we're in a situation where the soybean crop here in the U.S. and the soybean supplies as we approach 2022 are moderately higher, but nothing outrageously high like we had 2 or 3 years ago.
And what are you seeing on the corn side of things?
Well, the corn's been also a scenario where we've had a switcheroo here on some of the demand. And that last year we had some very impressive kind of numbers going on here and expectations on corn on exports. But this year, same issues in that we actually kind of hung in here and didn't do terribly bad versus a year ago on exports from there. But the domestic ethanol outputs definitely been having fantastic returns here, and the overall numbers, actually it looks like here in my projections we're going to be the highest we've had since the beginning of the outbreak and pandemic there. The December, January, February levels were just about 1.7 billion bushels, that including all the things in the industrial demand side of things, ethanol, sugars, those types of things. We're going to be really very near that level again this year, and during this fall quarter. And usually the winter quarter is right up there, also, in that standpoint. So it's going to be interesting if the USDA decides to maybe stare at that a little closer here. They did make any changes in the December U.S. corn demand. They could end up increasing that number this time around, but there's been lots of chirping about exports and things of that nature, and that. But I think the USDA is going to kind of keep that also somewhat reduced here until they actually see how the South American crop really starts to come through. To some extent, we've already had reports out of Paranon of some damage, and that Rio Grande, I think, is very susceptible, even southern parts of Mato Grosso del Sol from there. So we've the corn production number, along with, I think, what's going to really be quite interesting here with Argentina kind of originally switching its planting relationships here. They plant stuff before the wheat harvest, they plant stuff after the wheat harvest down there. This year they decided they'd go and plant a little bit more after the wheat harvest because they had good results last year. But the way the weather's stacking up, maybe they should have went the other way. But that's always a crapshoot for everybody when you're making a decision as to timing. Right now, it seems like that the La Nina is on the build here yet. Still going to be around through most of January, and maybe at this point even hang into February. We'll have to see. But at this point, it could make things difficult for Argentina's output going forward. But that that's definitely one of those more interesting things to figure out. The U.S. and the world weather is always a interesting situation, just like we had this week's kind of surprise spot of 3-inch rain there in parts of Paranon was not on anybody's radar.
And aside from the report, I think the big surprise in the year of 2021 was wheat. What are you expecting for that commodity in the new year?
Well, the wheat market ended up, it started out was pretty lackluster in that from there. But the impact of the U.S. And North America, in particular Canada, also got dinged up pretty significantly here on their output and that. And then Russia didn't have the best of crops, but and Argentina was okay. But then we had the other side of the coin here with Australia having a very good crop and still expectations it might be going higher here over the last 2 or 3. The last month or so, we've really had a kind of defensive market after we really got fired up on issues on this fall plantings in Russia and things like that, and even the U.S. at this point. The Southwest is still looking kind of tough out there. Actually, I think that's going to be an interesting fact that's going to pop up here right after the first of the year. The USDA does not do weekly crop conditions reports on wheat during the wintertime, but they do put out once a month type of updates on that. And boy, I think we're going to have a we weren't in the best of shape. I think we're 44, 45% good and excellent. Not sure we're not going to have some numbers here, particularly because of Texas, Oklahoma, parts of Kansas, and that looking pretty sad. That we could get some numbers even lower than, closer to 40%, and that'll grab some people's attention. That's something that's come in the first few days of 2022. The twist of it right now is that demand side this time of year during the latter part of December and first part of January is always a little bit, people are on all kinds of different holidays and things like that. So there isn't as much export activity, and that's always a factor in this thing as we go along. And I think that's going to be interesting here as to how much more will Egypt be a buyer here. They're behind their traditional buying at this point. And so I'd have to say that the activity here in the wheat market is going to be watching the Southwest and also where the buyers around the world want to look at things. But I'd have to say that there's still some uncertainty to this crop here in the overall standpoint. And the markets are still be watching weather both in South America and around the world here on both grains and oil seeds.
And are you still expecting supply chain problems in the coming year?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Uh, there's been a modest improvement. I can't say that once you get as far behind as we did, it's going to take a little bit of issues to get that more consistent type situation. We do not need, actually, to be very frank, any kind of inclement weather in a significant part of the western U.S. We've had a lot of snows from San Francisco up towards Seattle, and and that's prompting some issues about this northern train uh, dispersals across the country, because it's really a huge portion of the containers that come on the West Coast are shipped out on trains to the Midwest and East Coast and then redistributed along the way. It's a long train truck ride from LA to Boston, so I don't see that that's going to be a real important factor on our situation here on supply chain. But uh, in general, I think it's slowly going to improve, but it's not going to be probably until we get into the spring period of 2022 will things start to maybe get back to normal.
All right. Anything else would you like to add, Jerry?
Well, I have to say that we the one thing that always happens this year is that we've had some pretty interesting production changes here in the corn and soybeans. We didn't touch on that. I don't think we're going to have those kind of numbers. Last year we had a 3.5 bushel change in corn. I'm kind of looking for oh 6/10, maybe 8/10 of a bushel down, and on those numbers, and that and the bean side. I'm just looking for a 2/10 decline there. So in reality, we're going to be looking at South American weather and as I said, the world of U.S. conditions here as being the factors that's going to drive these markets in 2022. But after 2021 was quite surprising. I wouldn't say that 2022 wouldn't have so few twists and turns too. So we all need to keep our heads on a swivel to keep trying on what's going on.
All right. Thank you and Happy New Year.
You too, Luis, and let's see what excitement we can gin up next year.